Lila Starling, the Moonlit Menagerie. Lila Starling loved the attic of her little cottage. It was where the world felt quiet, except for the soft rustling of old maps or the occasional creak of the wooden beams above her head. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her star-shaped locket warm against her chest. The locket always seemed to hum faintly in the attic, like it was trying to remember something long forgotten. Today, Lila was sketching in her journal. The attic window was open, letting in the salty breeze from Moonhaven's seaside. The golden light of the setting sun painted her copper curls in fiery hues as she traced the outline of a strange seashell she'd found on the beach that morning. It was spiraled like a staircase and shimmered faintly, as if it held moonlight inside. "Lila," her father's voice called from downstairs, breaking her focus. "Coming," she replied, tucking the shell into her pocket and shutting her journal. Her father always said dinner was best eaten hot, though with him, hot often meant slightly singed. Her dad's latest invention, a soup-stirring automaton, had splattered more tomato soup onto the walls than into the bowl. But Lila didn't mind. She liked their quirky life in Moonhaven, even if her dad's creations weren't exactly practical. As they ate, the conversation wandered to her favourite topic, her grandmother Maris. "Did Grandma really see a city made of glass in the middle of a desert?" Lila asked, her emerald eyes wide with curiosity. Her father smiled. "She swore by it, said the towers caught the sun and looked like they were on fire. Though with Maris you never knew what was real and what was just a good story." Lila fingered her locket thoughtfully. "I think they were real." Her dad chuckled but said nothing. That night, Lila sat by her bedroom window, gazing at the glowing sands of Moonhaven Beach under the moonlight. Her grandmother had once told her the sands glowed because the stars left little pieces of themselves behind. Lila didn't believe everything was magic, but some things felt like they could be. Then, just as she was about to crawl into bed, the locket around her neck began to hum again. This time it wasn't faint or warm. It was stronger, vibrating slightly as if it had woken up. Lila clutched it tightly and gasped when she saw it. An almost invisible line of light stretched from the locket, pointing out her window and toward the forest beyond Moonhaven. Her heart raced. The locket had never done this before. Was it a trick of the moonlight? Or was it trying to lead her somewhere? A soft knock at her window startled her, and she turned to see Felix, the mischievous fox who sometimes snuck into her yard perched on the ledge. His amber eyes glowed in the moonlight. "You're not going to bed, are you?" he said with a flick of his tail. Lila blinked. "Wait, did you just talk?" Felix tilted his head, unimpressed. "You're just now noticing? Honestly, for a girl who carries a magical locket, you're not very observant." Lila's jaw dropped. She had a million questions, but the fox stood and gave her a meaningful look. "Well, are you coming or not? Whatever that locket's pointing to, it's not going to wait forever." Lila hesitated for a moment, then slipped on her boots. The locket tugged her forward like an invisible compass, its glow matching the shimmer of Moonhaven Beach in the distance. "Where are we going?" she asked Felix as they padded softly through the cobblestone streets of the sleeping town. "You'll see," Felix replied, his voice oddly serious now. "But don't dawdle. The moon only stays this bright for so long." And so, with the stars above her and her locket guiding the way, Lila stepped into the forest, unaware that her life was about to change forever. The forest was alive with whispers, not the kind you could hear exactly, more like a feeling in the air, the way the wind moved through the leaves or how the shadows seemed to shift when you weren't looking. Lila held the star locket tightly in her hand as its faint glow lit the path ahead. "Keep up," Felix said, glancing over his shoulder. His orange fur shimmered faintly under the moonlight, and his paw steps made no sound against the mossy ground. "I still don't understand," Lila whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. "Why did the locket light up? Where are we going?" Itty Felix stopped suddenly and turned to face her, his amber eyes narrowing. "You ask too many questions." Well, you don't give enough answers, Lila shot back, crossing her arms. The fox sighed dramatically, as if babysitting a curious 10-year-old was beneath him. Fine. The locket. It's connected to magic, right? And magic? It's messy. It likes to stir things up, get people moving. All I know is it wants you to see something important. Lila frowned but didn't argue. The locket's pull was steady, like a string tied to her heart, tugging her forward. Whatever it wanted her to find, she couldn't stop now. They walked deeper into the woods, the path narrowing and twisting like it had a mind of its own. The moonlight barely broke through the canopy now, but the locket's glow grew brighter with every step. The air felt cooler, crisper, like the kind of night that held secrets. Then just ahead, the trees opened into a clearing. Lila stopped in her tracks, her breath catching in her throat. The clearing was like something out of a dream. Statues of animals, foxes, deer, owls, even a bear, stood frozen in mid-motion, scattered around a silvery pool in the center. But these weren't ordinary statues. Their surfaces glowed faintly, as though the moonlight itself had carved them. "What is this place?" she whispered. Felix padded forward, his tone unusually soft. "The Moonlit Menagerie. It's older than anyone remembers, a place where magic animals gather when they're too tired, too broken, or just need to hide." He motioned to the statues with his tail. "During the day, they're stone, but under the moonlight, they come alive." Lila stepped closer, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. She could almost feel the stillness of the statues, as if they were holding their breath. Her locket glowed brighter now, casting soft light over the clearing. But then, something felt wrong. She frowned, looking at the statues more carefully. There was a fox, a wolf, a rabbit. But just beyond them, near the edge of the clearing, one statue caught her attention. It was cracked. The glowing light on its surface flickered like a dying candle. "What happened to that one?" Lila asked, pointing. Felix's ears twitched nervously. "That's a problem." "What kind of problem?" The fox hesitated before answering. "One of the creatures is missing." "Missing," Lila repeated, her voice rising in alarm. Felix nodded grimly. "Every creature here has magic. If one of them disappears, it disrupts the balance of the menagerie. That crack, you see, it's just the start. If we don't find the missing one and bring it back, this place could fall apart." Lila's stomach churned. The thought of this magical, beautiful place breaking into pieces made her chest ache. "Then we have to find it," she said firmly. Felix tilted his head, studying her. "You're awfully determined for someone who just got here." "I can't just leave it like this," Lila said. "This place, it's special. I can feel it." Felix's serious expression softened for a moment, and he gave a small nod. "All right, Starling. Let's see what you've got." Together they started searching the clearing for clues. Lila knelt by the cracked statue, running her fingers over the rough edges. It was warm to the touch, pulsing faintly like a weak heartbeat. "Felix, do you think the missing creature ran away? Or was it taken?" Felix's tail flicked. "Good question. Magical creatures don't usually leave the menagerie without a reason. But if someone wanted to harm this place, taking one of them would be a good way to start." Lila shivered at the thought. As they searched, something caught her eye. A faint trail of silvery footprints leading away from the clearing. They sparkled faintly under the moonlight, disappearing into the dense forest beyond. "Felix! Look!" The fox bounded over, his nose twitching as he inspected the prints. They're fresh, and they don't belong to anything from the menagerie." "Then we follow them," Lila said, her voice steady. Felix hesitated. "You sure about this? The forest gets tricky at night, and whatever left these prints might not want to be found." Lila's hand went to her locket, its warmth grounding her. "I'm sure we have to try." Felix let out a soft laugh. "You're a brave one, I'll give you that." And so they followed the footprints deeper into the woods, the glow of the menagerie fading behind them. The forest seemed darker now, the air thicker, as if it didn't want them to go any further, but Lila kept moving, her heart pounding with determination. They didn't know what they'd find at the end of the trail, but Lila had a feeling this was only the beginning. The silvery footprints glimmered faintly as Lila and Felix followed them deeper into the forest. The path twisted and turned, the trees pressing closer together, their gnarled branches blocking out most of the moonlight. The locket's glow was her only guide now, a soft beacon in the dark. "Are we almost there?" Lila asked, her voice hushed. "Hard to say," Felix replied, sniffing the air. "But whatever we're chasing, it's close. I can feel it." Just then the footprints stopped. The trail ended abruptly in front of a large moss-covered boulder. Lila frowned, running her hands over the rough surface. "It's just a rock," she said, puzzled. "Is it?" Felix asked, his tone wary. Lila stepped back and held up her locket. Its glow brightened, casting light across the boulder. Suddenly, faint symbols appeared, etched into the stone, swirls and stars that pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. "It's a door," Lila whispered. Felix's tail twitched. "I was afraid of that." "A door to what?" Before Felix could answer, the locket pulsed again, and the boulder began to shift. It groaned and rumbled, splitting down the middle to reveal a dark passageway leading underground. Cool air rushed out, carrying a strange metallic scent. "After you," Felix said, though his ears flattened nervously. Lila took a deep breath. "Thanks for being so brave," she said dryly, stepping into the tunnel. The passage was narrow and cold, the walls shimmering faintly with veins of silver. The further they went, the stronger the pull of the locket became, and then, at the end of the tunnel, they saw it. A small creature huddled in the corner, glowing faintly like a firefly. It was no bigger than a cat, with silvery fur and wide, frightened eyes. Lila's heart ached at the sight. "There you are," Felix said softly, his tone uncharacteristically gentle. "Good." The creature flinched, backing away. Lila knelt down, keeping her voice calm and steady. "Hey, it's okay. We're here to help." The creature blinked at her, its glowing eyes full of fear. Then it spoke, a soft, tremulous voice that sounded like wind through chimes. "I can't go back." "Why not?" Lila asked, tilting her head. The creature hesitated, its fur dimming slightly. "The curse? If I return, it will spread. The menagerie will fall apart." Lila's mind raced. A curse? That explained the cracked statue and the strange symbols on the door. But she couldn't leave the creature here, alone and scared. Felix sighed. "Curses are tricky. Most of the time they feed on fear. If you let them control you, they win." Lila nodded slowly, an idea forming in her mind. What if the curse isn't as powerful as you think? What if it's just waiting for someone brave enough to face it? The creature stared at her, its glow flickering uncertainly. "I'll go with you," Lila said firmly. "If something bad happens, we'll face it together. You don't have to be alone." Felix gave a small, approving nod. "Not bad, Starling." The creature hesitated, then took a tentative step toward her. The locket glowed brighter, as if encouraging them. Lila reached out her hand, and after a long moment, the creature placed its paw in hers. As they walked back through the tunnel, the air grew warmer, lighter, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. When they reached the clearing, the menagerie seemed to glow brighter under the moonlight, and the cracked statue began to mend itself, the fissures fading like a bad dream. The creature stepped into the clearing, its silvery fur shimmering. It turned to Lila and said softly, "Thank you." Before her eyes, the statues began to move, their frozen forms coming to life one by one. The fox stretched, the owl flapped its wings, and the deer shook its head, sending sparks of light into the air. Felix grinned. "Well, that's a relief." Lila watched in awe, her heart swelling with warmth. She'd done it. She'd helped bring the menagerie back to life. As the moonlight bathed the clearing, the locket around her neck grew quiet again, its glow fading. But Lila didn't mind. She knew this wasn't the end of the story, just the beginning of many more adventures to come. The end.